Welcome. Today theme is a crown, and I was thinking about going for a throne. I prepared my references because I don't want this time to use too much time for that. Because I'd have to prepare. Also, I don't know the policy behind showing or not showing pictures. I don't really want to get involved at the moment with it. So I'd rather much simply just not thinking about it and just search for them beforehand, even do the sketch. Fortunately, yesterday was not a great day for me to sketch stuff out. So that's going to compound a little bit into today's drawing. Just trying to be more ambitious, but I hope to not push it so too far. Usually I end up regretting when I overthrow my hand, you know. Doesn't it never helped me to be extremely ambitious when drawing. So I'd like to keep it simple enough to be able to finish it today. I think at most I can also finish inking it later. But it's just as much a preposition of wanting it to finish it. I never really I try to not concern myself about the skills at the moment, but being able to finish it is probably the better part, you know. Like there's a lot of value when something is actually done. As opposed to having something that you should be going back to at some point, which never happens. Well, again, not for me that I am not when you're an amateur, or I probably should say an insecure amateur. I don't know, it feels very bold to showcase something that is subpar, in my opinion. Or I should say, rather than in my opinion, in my experience, I very much struggle to showcase something that's not optimal. Is not the correct term. I came to the conclusion. I came to the realization that saying optimal is not correct. Rather say something that's not professional. Even realizing that expecting professionality from me is insanity. But I think that that's the part of the course, you know. That's what counts as average today. I honestly can't, for the love of me, take a look at some sides of the web at this moment, just because of that. Everything is taken way too seriously. Or rather than way too seriously, most egregiously, everything needs to go to beyond being an amateur. And that's not always the goal. Or in the very least, I kind of chose to go. I kind of choose to act better in regards to my drawing education rather than everything else. Even if it's in stark contrast to how I'm approaching it now, the long-term plan is to improve. Like, this is a place in which it's being worked on to improve. Maybe I like something like the gym or any really other endeavor where I'm rather enjoying my time more than improving. Because it is not, try to not make it feel like an obligation. Okay, Tron doesn't look that bad. Lower the opacity and start to sketch over it the girl, or the queen, should I say. And so today's piece, I tried to make, I aim to make a queen-like, a bored queen-like figure. Try to mix a couple of different references, just because I felt like the other days I wasn't really pushing that much. So I'd like today to be a little bit different. This is where my gestures should come very should come handy. Perhaps. I've studied anatomy way before I should have. And that was a very nice lesson in the sense that I wasted a lot of time on something that I shouldn't really. Or maybe shouldn't is kind of strong. The correct expression would be that it wasn't as fruitful as I imagined. Because in my opinion, in my perception, ciao ma. In my perception, I always thought that it felt correct to know the anatomy before doing anything else. And it was shocking that it wasn't really the case. Actually, even worse than that. That's a lot of wasted effort and time. Well, wasted is not the correct term, but probably should say premature. That's a quite premature time to be studying anatomy. Because anatomy won't make it feel like the drawing comes to life. And that really is most of it. There is usually some story to be told, even like outside of comic books, and even like not being a fan of telling stories with illustrations. I'm more of a comic guy. But even then, there's always some story that's being told through pictures. Usually, in my limited experience, I really underestimated how much heavy lifting does gesturing your drawing does, rather than simple anatomy or simply relying on anatomy. But lesson learned. Hopefully, going forward, I would have a little more luck in how I decide my next study, as to waste less time. Even if, being honest, rather than thinking about it as a waste, I just think more about it like a fun exploration. It will take you in some detour for sure. It's probably more wasteful to not detour in any way. Okay, yeah, so this should be way more inclined, and this should, and the forearm should come closer to the body, so something like that. Too long. Yeah, this is where the extension for the arm. At first, it felt weird to have a mirror just in front of me, but it's proving to be quite useful. Okay. So this is where it stands. Very nice. And this one, I'd love for it just lay freely here. Wait long. Feels extremely long. Okay, this doesn't look like a bad blocking of the character. Let's also block its expression, then we will walk our way for the clothes. Again, the arms feels very long, but well, I gotta be honest, everything feels way too long. But that's how stuff be feeling at times. Or should I say that's how sometimes drawing be feeling like. So board expressions. My instinct is to flatten the eyelids, then can, yeah. Okay, so flattening everything seems to be doing it. Kind enough justice, yeah. Maybe if my eyes were a bit more symmetrical, that would work better, but whatever. Also, some eyelashes for the female part. I'm still not super sure about the more feminine masculine features, or I was more sure at one point, but then came a dude that basically demolished everything I knew. So now I'm a little bit unsure how to proceed in that regard. Because there's truth to that there are women who have profoundly profoundly is not the correct term, but have masculine traits that still look feminine. So I'm gonna take the easy way out and just do with some eyelashes and long hair, and that serves good enough for me. Also, a little bit of lips. Thick man, thick. Okay, not terrible. As for the last piece, the hairline. So, hairline is one of those concepts that I clearly understand the physics, or let's say I understand the principle, but I can't quite get it to behave. So let's because I understand that when it's front head, you would see this plane that goes up. Problem with this plane going up is it is weird to imply this directionality. because she has like some hair that overlap. So since the hair are mostly flat, my idea would be that this is the one that overlaps and goes behind. So there's one. This one goes below, but then some hair will start from here and go below. Finally, some might even start lower. Yeah, that looks convincing enough. Then the other part of the hair is, in this case, from the front and goes behind the ears. And meanwhile, again, the back side closes up like that. So this one stops over there. And maybe even a couple out of place. Yeah, this looks reasonable. Let's erase the top of the head. Yeah, this is manageable. Not gonna lie, the upper part, the traps does not look like the place I should go. But I think I can just cover it up. Not really. I think that simply needs to push in this part. So if I measure her head, the right side looks long enough, which means that I just have to push in this part. And it's consistent to me referencing myself when you rest your head, when you rest your head on a hand, it do be looking like the body parts intersect. Actually, I can even see a little bit of a trap over here. So let's lower them so it doesn't feel like she's a muscle mummy. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not what I'm aiming for. Okay. Yep. Okay, that arm doesn't go anywhere like this. Feels good. Let's cover up most of what I can. Because the whole confusing part of the body should be able to, I should be able to cover it up. Like, let's put in the boobs and cover them up. Okay. Actually gonna blue out this one, but a little more insistent. And finally we're gonna put the clothes in the actual crown. That's the part I forgot. So let's clothe her up, and I still have a lot of time to start thinking, so there's a little bit more to be done. So for the clothes, one cool thing that I have in my reference, there's a traditional Greek dress, which would then make the boobs a little bit higher, I guess. And larger, I think. Yeah, it might even come down to something like this. And this dress reaches to her shoulder and comes down like that. Fair enough. Then now the part that's kind of weird is that the dress should fall all the way to the floor. My natural enemy, clothes folds. It does look dressy in some way. And let's put the crown over here. Well, technically, her hair should be a little bit less wavy now that there's a crown involved. I can correct that. I think I should be able to. Okay, so if this is the top of her head, there should be a one stone here, a smaller one here, smaller one here, and then another stone over here. Now for put some other pieces. Yep. Now the hair are pushed a little bit more. So that should do it. Good. And let's render a fist. That's not something I... Okay, this is the right fist. Sounds about correct. Now, luckily for me, I don't see as much as I could. But I do see the thumb. So this is a... actually outside from the body. Okay. Feels like there's way much more hand than it should be. And I think that that's because I don't see enough fingers. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Now I think we can go in. Starting with the major stuff. Let's do this even more and make this like 50% so that way I can see what's more in foreground. Now, why the fuck did I leave the armpit open? That sounds like a bad idea. Okay, we can make some more. To be 100% honest, I have no fucking idea what I do when I fold the clothes, but that's how stuff be like sometimes. Even though I think I should get some level of consistency, it takes very little clothes folding to make it look good. Helps a lot with that adds a lot of details without feeling like a lot of details. Okay, she feels long. Feels so long. Okay, this arm is not from the same person. Looks a tiny bit better. And for the hand, let's vibe it a little. Over vibed. I don't know why I'm doing the hand with the same brush of the body. That's 5. Yeah, that's 5. Yeah. So all right. So good so far. My ordering is probably like bizarre. So let's try to get any level of symmetry if I can. Right, this looks not half bad. Yeah, not gonna lie, doesn't. Don't dislike it. But wait, not I don't dislike it. Okay, for the crown. I think since it should be gold, could probably like play with the aesthetic a bit. Some kind of grayish that suggests a yellow. The yellow can also be white without it being a big deal. Okay. Back to 17 or 20 or whatever the fuck I used for my shit. Mm. Okay. Nice. So to throw in a little bit of a decoration, same goes over here. Don't you dare take away every layer that I did. Now I start to feel that probably it's not the details that is missing, but the care, so to speak, in my picture, rather than being it about it being about how many details can I shove in. It's mostly a factor of how much cleaner I can make my drawing. Also because these details most of the time are not maybe serving too much. But I feel limited on what I can do about the anatomy per se. Like that's gonna take simply a lot of work, and that's that. Like drawing has felt to me that it requires more than knowledge, experience. And that's the most that's the biggest factor in becoming better. So I don't know how much it never felt to me like having lots of knowledge helped me draw better. More like reinforced why I did shit stuff, and that on the long run probably helped to draw better. It never felt like directly about. Well, I've put myself into a corner. Now I have to finish this bullshit. It never felt about it being what I learned directly proportionate to what I do. But that's probably something to do that I don't notice at my job. How much learning I can do in the simple doing of stuff. Since I don't get paid to draw, I don't accumulate as much experience as I do at my day job, and that could be part of why it feels different. Gotta say, turned out not so bad. Now, I believe there is some hair that has been missed. Like this here. Well, let's just put a little bit of shadow there. I also wanted to go a light makeup. See if this destroys the drawing. It actually doesn't. I was a little bit afraid that this might, but actually not at all. That's good. Okay, now this is creepy. Now, one thing that I noticed is the shadows in the eyes. Okay, but so thin it looks gray. Does this make her more bored? Yeah, that's good. Can drop a hint of a shadow over here. Good. Same goes for behind her. To up the contrast, I could at the same time cross hatch it. Like, cross hatching turns out to be very fun. It is time consuming and feels stupid. But I did not expect to have this meditational property to it, you know? Feels like some kind of relaxing game. Now, for the colors, feel like the skin will stay relatively the same, but I want to make the draper parts, the redder parts be gray. That should be relatively easy to be done. Yep. Quite quick. But also this part should go the same. And I guess part around it, but yeah, I don't feel like doing that. Okay. I think I can darken everything. Now for the crown and the belt, if we go for this light green, that shouldn't be that bad. Okay. Just gray out everything. Okay, good. Same goes for this. Okay, the bucket is not the best tool for this job. I remember somebody made a cool lasso that will snap to objects. Should search it up. Okay, then. Yeah, and even today I finished relatively quickly. But again, all of these times, it still feels like something's missing. Always lacks a little bit of something. Of course, it lacks a part of the chair. But even beyond that, I still searching for some way to make it pop a little bit more. Like there's some quality that it misses. I think it has to do with my bad anatomy. And yet today it still worked out somehow. So that will take, oh, hairs. Let's go for the 10. Now I realize that all of this doesn't make any sense because if she has longer hairs, this would be mostly hair strains. Honesty, looks great. Not too bad for me. I think we can go. Oh, yeah, it still takes like under an hour. So makes me believe I can push a little bit more tomorrow. Even though it's Sunday, so I have a mixed, a kind of big day. But yeah, let's give it a spin. So export this as number 3. Should even go lighter than export it to number 3. Or rather, could give it a name. That's about that for today. I will see you tomorrow. See you.